Welcome to the For Love and Money podcast, the show where business and social purpose meet to inspire a movement for positive change. Here's your host, Carolyn Butler-Madden.
Saving the world one wash at a time. Sounds pretty good, right? That's the question posed and answered by the personal care brand Baresop, which is responsible for producing modern-day zero-waste personal care products. They manufacture everything from hand wash soaps to body wash products, and Baresop is pushing to create change through every wash. Baresop's founder, Prisca Ongonga-Daehn, is my guest on today's episode of the podcast, and I can't wait for you to hear Prisca's story and the absolute gems of insight she shares about starting this social purpose-led brand, Baresop. Prisca is a Kenyan-born Australian. She's a global citizen, an entrepreneur, and a changemaker. I read that Prisca was told it's not possible many times in the early development of Baresop, but she refused to give up. She had a vision for a product range that would reduce waste, be good for the planet, and be waterless. I don't know about you, but I love people who prove the naysayers wrong. Prisca, welcome to the For Love and Money podcast. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you very much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here. And so thrilled as well with the mission that you are on. And literally just keep pushing on the purpose and why it's important in today's world. So thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I first learned about you and Baresop at the Purpose Conference in October last year, 2022, and just from that moment was really excited to reach out to you and get you to come and share your story with us. So I want to kick off with the first question, which is, when you think about business today, does love have a role to play? What do you think?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And why do I say that? It's actually interesting because that's the path that I am personally on and that Baresop is on, and really to pave that pathway and to almost show with data, actually, that doing business, so love and money should coexist. They actually should be a unit. In fact, the way we see it and going forward in the world that we are in, when you're looking at the numbers and the metrics, you literally should have the purpose metrics there as well. When you're in the boardroom, looking at what have we done and where are we? How can you bring this together so you are actually doing both? And but to answer your question, love and money should be one thing, and it should be the norm, not the anomaly, if you ask me. And I'm just that you should start with that question, because that is exactly the path that we are on, and really to prove that it is possible. And when you do it well, it's actually better for your business. So it's literally a win-win in my point of view.
Absolutely. And so there are two themes that come out of what you've just talked about for me. One is, I love that you're talking about the data to measure impact, but also to measure the impact that purpose has on profit, right? And with that, I'm hearing more and more about financial companies who are starting to include impact as part of their reporting and as part of the company's balance sheet. So, and this is something I'm really excited to delve into deeper, because when it starts, appearing on annual reporting, and I've heard from people overseas who've said this is coming and it's coming quicker than business leaders realize, then gosh, the movement is just going to absolutely accelerate. It's already accelerating, but that's when it's just going to take off, right? And ESG reporting is the beginning of that. Yeah. But I reckon it's only the beginning.
100%. And for that to be happening in our lifetime, Caroline, and something that many years ago was almost like, yeah, really, no one cares. Like, just show us the money, right? And that is changing quite quickly. And it's almost like a movement. I don't know whether it's because of all the activism going happening at the moment in all kind of social aspects. I'm not sure what that drives it, but for me personally, I feel like I have the conviction that it's my purpose and it's why I exist as a human. Like, I think we all have our own purpose, but really, to me, the human aspect of business and the human aspect of impact is so important, because business cannot exist without humans, and vice versa. And the planet and everything else we are trying to solve, but we cannot solve those things without looking at the primary factor of all of these things, like who plays a role in all of this. And humans stand literally up on the graph.
And I'm so glad you've talked about that, and I really want to open the door for you to share your personal purpose. But that's the second theme that came out of what you were talking about, and that is the human factor, and the simple rational fact, I believe it's rational, right? But it seems to have been lost over the last 40, 50 years, is that business is there to serve society, ultimately. That's how business started. And, we've lost sight of that, haven't we? It's like suddenly business, no, it's all about profitability because profitable businesses will serve society. Bullshit. Sorry.
But the profit comes from human using the product, the business, as a service or as a product.
Yeah.
The consumption is from humans.
Yeah.
Literally, like if we think about it, with every innovation out there, it happens because humans make it happen. Because a machine is not going to consume a machine, and if it does, there's a human that makes sure that it's running and it's happening. Unless obviously to a point whereby we have technology where humans are not part of the equation, with all the stuff happening around with AIs and all those things. But until that time.
Yeah. And ultimately, when it comes to the end point, it is about people. It is people need a planet to survive on. People need functioning societies. And when a major societal institution is actually, deriding that in some ways, and I'm not saying business is all bad. I don't want people to get that. It's amazing. Business is amazing. But the negative impacts of business cannot be justified any longer. It has to change. And that's why, businesses and brands like Baresop are really starting to show the way for other brands. So I'd love to open the door for you to share your story, Prisca, and your own personal purpose and what led you to starting Baresop.
Right. Thank you. It's a story actually I share all the time, obviously, with my stakeholders and our partners. So I've kind of come to a point whereby I have articulated a very paragraph form. So otherwise we'd be here forever, as you can imagine. But really, it's in essence, it's a lived experience. And again, just really quickly, a conversation about the plastic piling in the Pacific garbage patch with my daughter, and really finding out that we have to own the narrative. We cannot be the victims of this. Otherwise, we're not solving the problem. We are being part of the problem, and going through that journey to find solutions for us. Quite easy in the kitchen, not so much in the bathroom, and kind of just really shocked as to the amount of the problem. I found it a huge problem when I started to find out the data of it. And then again, the difficulty in finding a solution that worked for us. And that, as well as obviously a few things came together, my background or my experience in founding other business before that, and also a point in my life where I was looking for clarity on my purpose and why am I here? And I think, I'm sure it's something people go through at some point in their life, I would imagine. And that was the time I was going through that. And so everything just came together. And yeah, in essence, really, that's what happened. I could go into the whole process of, trying to find out like what's the solution. And as you said, getting so much pushbacks on that's never going to happen, and just saying actually really, I think, yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned your daughter, and I read about that as well, that discovering this and talking to your daughter about it was what really fueled your action in this. And a previous guest of ours was from the brand, Good Citizen?
Yeah.
Glasses. So Nick, he tells a story about how Good Citizen was started around the kitchen table, the dining table, with his family, with his two sons, talking about the plastic problem. And it strikes me, I'm hearing variations on this story a little bit more now of parents. It's having children is a huge responsibility in this age. And when children see this huge, the huge challenges ahead of us, I think as parents, it's almost impossible to ignore it. And the fact it's fueled you, to go down this path is amazing.
Actually, I will add something to that as well. Just because you said that, the way she articulated the problem, and it came from a conversation of, why do you go to school? Like, what do you aim to achieve? Or what's the purpose of all of this? I mean, she's a very smart girl, so we are always having these conversations. It happened to be that at that time. And her saying that I want to be successful enough so I can actually be able to find, not a solution really, but to be able to actually have the money to get that problem solved, because no one is doing anything and it's going to cost trillions of dollars to do it. And I was like, wow, but that's a really long time. We actually could start doing something now. And almost like, as a parent trying to almost solve your kids' problems. Is that correct? Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
As you automatically, and I'm like, oh my God, like, how can I help? Like, what can I do? Because you're in this situation whereby I need to do something, first of all, as a parent, and then it just became this thing, actually. Yeah.
And what's fascinating about what you talk about with your daughter's response was, almost a traditional thinking approach, which is, I need to become successful. I need to make money so I can solve the problem. And you've now turned it on its head. Instead of success, money first, problem solving later, which is has been the traditional model, you've turned it on its head and you've gone, no, let's create a business that solves the problem.
Exactly. And it's that, and it's funny how that actually has now become our tagline, because it came from that. I wanted to show Hannah that we all have the power to create change, right? We each can, in our own little small way, to this big plastic problem in the Pacific Patch. If we just start here, we are already creating a bit of change. And then that went to, okay, how many people are having this problem, and how can I help them with a solution that actually makes it easy for them to create change in a little way that becomes a collective? And that almost drove that product development, and discovery process. I interviewed probably 200 people, do you have this problem? How are you solving it? And what would be the easiest way for you to solve it? So it was a whole thing, but it really came from that problem of, how do we make it easy for others to create change and not wait for the big solution, but we can be part of that solution in each small way, but in a way that doesn't require you to compromise all of the things. And again, this data came from, discovery stage, ideation stage. Yes, just to give you a lens as to how, interestingly enough, that became our tagline now. You have the power to create change, create change with every wash, right?
Love it. Love it. And this idea of lots of small steps to create change, make big change, and bringing together a collective of people who each want to make those small steps. Now, I read somewhere that you have a huge goal. I've read a quote from you: we're eliminating 1 billion single-use plastic bottles from landfill, 50,000 tonnes of CO2 avoided from our atmosphere, and 600,000 litres of water conserved by 2035. I love the ambition of that. And this, going back to what you said, how do we make it easy for people to make small change, but then building that collective, that movement, so that all those small changes become huge impact. Tell us more about this goal. Like, how did you set it? Is it something, and I'm really curious to understand this, because we've done something similar, but is it a huge goal that, you've got a clear plan, or is it a huge, big, hairy, audacious goal that is deliberately massive to force you to think differently?
That's a very good question. I would say it's a combination of both. The first part of that is it's actually built on our data. I love data, right? I can't live without it.
I'm getting that.
And it's built from our history of obviously sales and the impact we have created, and then building that on based on our forecast and based on what we think we can do. So it is audacious, but it's also achievable, right? Because almost like we know we can do it. It's not a dream. Let me put it that way, because if we were saying a dream, I think I'd be having something different on there. And then the way that we built up those metrics of CO2 and water is also based on one sachet. How much water is that? Like one sachet is 300 mils, and then one sachet is also one single-use plastic bottle that you're not buying or disposing. And when we transport that, what is the carbon emission that we are actually avoiding from emission, right? So it's just built on, first of all, the data on the products, and then building that onto the financials.
Love it. Audacious and achievable. Love it. Okay. I'm going to ask you to go back now and tell us about Baresop, as if our listener doesn't know anything about it. Tell us about the company, and please.
Okay. Right. I feel like I'm doing a pitch here today. But okay. So if I was talking to, let's say, a 5-year-old, right, or a friend or someone who has no idea, I have to be very, very simple and specific. I'd say Baresop is a purpose-driven personal care brand that exists to create change with every wash, create impact and change. So those are the 3 key pillars that we work with. So we are challenged to create innovations that make it easy for everyone to do the right thing, to do good. So how do we keep innovating better solutions? How do we keep obsessed with the problem and not the solution, really? Like, how do we make sure we are best solving the problem, right? And that's the create piece. And the impact piece, how do we make sure that impact is very much part of everything we do, right? How do we impact humanity, our shared humanity and our planet? How do we link those together? And really it's just about the impact. And obviously change is, how do we reimagine how people use these products for better or for good? How do we reimagine how actually the product is made, shaped, used, and disposed, the whole supply chain, in a way that's better for humanity and for planet? So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, brilliant. Love it. And I love how you've expressed the innovation piece. How do we stay obsessed with the problem? Um, I'm going to use that. I love that so much because I still find even with businesses that are on the purpose journey and they're looking at embedding purpose, it still feels in some ways like this thing that they've got to do while they're still doing business. And what I've seen from businesses like yours is when you're obsessed with the problem that you're solving, you're just looking for how is the best way we can impact that. You're not constrained by things. So yeah, I love how you framed that, Prisca. Can you tell us about your products? Because yeah, I've read some of the benefits of the products. And first of all, tell us, what product did you start with?
Right. So we were actually fortunate to be part of the Monash validation program. So we actually went through the validation, the sprint, and the accelerator. So through that journey, we were able to figure out like what is the lowest barrier to market? What is the product we cannot, because it was literally a new idea. I mean, so much that we actually patented the concept because it had never been done before. And it's, funnily enough, I'm going to just digress a little bit. Funnily enough, whenever we were sharing the problem or our sort of idea of concept, we were getting the feedback, well, if it was doable, why hasn't Unilever done it? Why hasn't P&G done it? I'm like, don't ask me. I don't know why they haven't done it, but like, really? You think you could do that? If it was possible, why haven't these people done it? And it was really interesting, really, honestly. Anyway, going back to so we were like, okay, how do we actually launch the lowest barrier that people can actually start to use? Because hand wash was the lowest barrier because it's a new concept. You say, okay, here's a body wash, shampoo, conditioner. Like, what is this? How can I trust this? So we launched with a pilot of the hand wash. And that was based on a process of actually a whole test. So we sent 100 really, really, honestly, if you saw our first product, I'm embarrassed. It was the package in this thing. And we just, and people, and we're like, okay, give us your feedback. And the feedback had to be, don't tell us your name, because we kind of want the raw truth. And within that, we went and produced a pilot and launched to everyone, and that went really well. And we said, okay, I think we've got this based on the data we are having. So let's go on and do the whole thing now. Like, let's launch and release other products, which body wash was the first one. So you asked me, what is the product and how does it work? So what it is, Caroline, it's pretty much, you get your sachet. It's a 15-gram crystallized powder. We've only taken the active ingredients of your soap, which is really what you need, right? Made sure that, how do we make it super concentrate so that it's a 15-gram? It's actually enough for a 300 ml bottle. And so we ship it. The sachet comes with a refill bottle made out of recycled waste from Australia. We make it all here in Victoria. And all you have to do is just add water, add the sachet, swirl the bottle a little bit, and that's your soap really. So when you run out, you just order the refill sachet. And what that does is actually a number of things. First one, obviously, you don't have to buy another plastic bottle. You can just refill the one you have. You don't have to, we don't have to ship you a filled in liquid bottle, saving on the CO2, saving on the emission, as well as, because what we found out was that people were buying the refills, like the, 1 kg of 500 mils, and then keeping them and then refilling their bottles. But we're like, you don't have to do that. It doesn't make sense. Like, first of all, some people actually don't have the space. If you just have the sachet, it saves you from so much space, right? And the shipping cost and all of the things. It's a no-brainer.
So it's similar to Zero Co. So we had Mike Smith on this show, and when I saw you at Purpose Conference, you were on the same panel as Mike Smith from Zero Co. And do you have a relationship with Zero Co?
Well, obviously, I know Mike, as you just said, and we are on this journey together to solve this really big problem. And the more people out there solving it, the better. I realize we all can't solve it the same way. That's business, obviously, right? And that's actually good because some people prefer another solution and some prefer the other, right? So, So it's like having various solutions, and then each will choose what works best for them.
So your solution differs from theirs in that they have their refillable pouches, and their forever bottles. Yours is a sachet-based solution. So you take the active ingredients and sachets. So in terms of packaging, it's less. In terms of delivery, it's less. It's easier. And not comparing the two, it's different solutions, but
different. I think it's different. It's like you can't compare an apple and a pear, and they're all
the common thing is you're working towards the same solution.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying, they're all quite yummy and beautiful, but sometimes I like an apple and sometimes I like a pear. Right? So it's really just that. But our solution really, I'll be very honest, our solution came from amount of conversations with so many people, thinking, okay, currently you are refilling and you're getting the pouches, but is there a way that we can do it that's actually serving the planet better, right? And serving you as a consumer better. So as I said, some people prefer that. Some people still prefer to do the liquid, the diluted soap. So it's all good.
Enjoying the podcast? If you're looking for more inspiration, head to our website, thecauseeffect.com.au, for more resources on how you can start using your business as a force for good. Or buy the For Love and Money book. Every copy sold allows us to protect 1 square metre of rainforest. Help us save 10,000 square metres by 2025.
So with your product, tell us about all the benefits, because there are a number of benefits, aren't there?
Oh, 100%. And I feel like I get the feedback that we don't share it very well or enough. And again, how much time we have, I'll be very quick. So based on the data that we collected during that discovery, finding out what would people love best and what's important to people. So we collected that to make sure that the solution we were creating had all of those things and more. So when we talk about the sachet, making sure that our ingredients are mindful and they're clean. They obviously don't have all the toxic stuff. They're vegan. They're obviously cruelty-free, but also making sure that their ingredients actually are better for our skin. So because we also look at health and wellness brand, right? So how do we bring a solution that is better for your skin and your health? And then linking in the scent. I'm a scent person. If you come to my house, I'm always burning an essence or an essential oil. I think scents are such an important thing in our lives, especially as we're so busy and we kind of need that moment of right? And so how do we build that into the product? And because it's a powder product, it is so easy for us to actually play with the scent and tapping into the Australian botanical scent, because we're very much an Australian brand. That's really, I think, if add the benefits, it's really we are trying to elevate your rituals. We are trying to elevate your experience. And again, the other day I was talking to one of our partners and she's like, Prisca, I've been using Baresop and it's actually so silky and so soft compared to the other foaming soaps I've been using, but you guys don't even say that. It's so lovely and gentle and silky, and you just have this moment of, oh, this is so beautiful, almost like a spa, but you never say that. Why don't you guys share that? I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. So in terms of the bottle, they're made in Australia, again, just from the data we pulled, recycled waste. And again, it's supposed to be a forever bottle. And again, our challenge here is how do we make this better? We're getting feedback. Okay, could your bottle be bigger? Could it be more premium? And we're taking all of those things. And as we said, we are obsessed with the problem, not solution. And if tomorrow we learned, okay, the powder is not the best solution right now, we'd literally change it tomorrow, because we're here to serve the need, not to like serve our own ego of, oh, it's our product, we have to do it. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so two things. I'd love you to go back. You talked about the scent, and you've got me like I'm straight after this interview, I'm going to go on and order mine. But tell us about some of the different scents you've got, because obviously that's an important thing to you, and I think to people as well. One thing we know is people won't compromise on quality. They want businesses to create impact, but they're not going to buy into impact at the cost of quality.
In fact, and the cost of convenience and the cost of experience. And I am one of those people. And this is how Baresop came, because I was like, what is that solution that works for me? Others, I'm going to try it. And after 1 month, I'm like, actually, no, it's too hard. I can't do it. So, and that's again, the challenge that's sort of the challenge we are having. Like, how do we keep doing that? So with the scents that we have at the moment, there's a story to this. It's really quite funny. I went to a First Nation restaurant, Mabu Mabu, one day. It's down in Fed Square, and they have like a gin menu. And I was looking at the gin menu, and it's literally all our scents. And I was like,
oh, wow.
This is incredible. So they had applewood, they had kwangdong, they had a desert lime, they had bushberries, and they were telling the stories of these scents. And I'm like, my mind was blown, but we were mindful of the scents that we use, making sure that they are actually native Australian scents, and they have benefits to the skin, and they smell great, like when you curate them together. But having had that experience, it made me go back, because I underestimated how much effort we went to actually curate those scents. I'm like, it's a whole gene thing. And so it's something we're excited to be doing a lot more. In fact, we have a project coming up, I can't talk about right now, but that is very much curating a scent based on a personality that we think is super inspiring. And this person has given us a scent of memories that they had that brought them joy at a time of difficulty. And we kind of want to we are capturing that and curating it into a scent and sharing stories through scents as well, because I love storytelling and I love sharing, and what best way to do it than through scent. You don't have to talk. I can just connect with you based on smelling this. So yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love that. I am a fellow lover of storytelling. One thing I've been talking a lot about. So I share stories, like stories about Baresop and Good Citizens and Zero Co and Who Gives a Crap, and all the brands that I research and learn about, and my clients' own brands as well and what they're doing. I share those stories when I speak. When I speak publicly or when I speak with clients, and it's amazing how people respond to them, right? And you can actually see an energy shift in a room when you're sharing those stories. So I've called them love stories.
Oh, I love that.
Because they're love stories. They are stories of businesses and people who are inspired by a love of people, planets, and humanity, right?
Exactly. And you're connecting, right? It's a connection, the human connection that we all need and we all thrive on. And yeah, you're a storyteller, a great storyteller. And otherwise you'd not be doing this thing that you're doing. It's right, because you do it so well. And
thank
very
you.
generous of you, because stories are so important, right?
Well, this podcast was basically a way for me to take the book For Love and Money and share deeper stories and more stories. So when I wrote my book, I was like, but there are so many more stories I want to share, and there are new stories emerging every day. And that's how this podcast was born. So it is a platform for people like you to share your stories and inspire others to create their own stories, right? Love stories.
100%. Like, I have been inspired by so many stories. Like, I read so many biographies, but I'm saddened that I can't read fiction anymore. But the amount of inspiration that I get from other people's stories, and actually in my life, so many have inspired me to where I am now. And I always say, if I can inspire somebody else, and that's why I'm involved in a lot of emerging, like, Black founders and people of color startup, just to let them know that you can do it. Like, and because confidence, I would say, is the first killer of ideas, right? And stories can impact others in a way that a degree won't. You get me?
Yes. Yes, that can help along the way, but it's the stories that, because they touch you, they light up so many more areas of your brain than normal communications, because, stories make people, it deepens the sensory experience, doesn't it? You hear, you feel things, you smell things, those experiences are shared, and they're so incredibly powerful. I want to reinforce one point, because something that's come through for me really strongly about your business and your products is water conservation. And so, I'm guessing household and personal care products are made up predominantly of water. So your product has clearly innovated by having that active ingredient. You just add water and it creates the solution. Have I understood that correctly?
You've understood that absolutely correctly. Exactly. And within that as well, actually, Caroline, the other thing that we've linked into that is, of every one of the 300 ml of water that we are not shipping, we are actually working with an organization called Charity Water, whereby we are making that amount of water. We are working through logistics, like the water, because to have metrics for just the water other than a person, it's really quite challenging at the moment. But what we are doing is we are making that accessible to communities that are running out of clean drinking water due to the droughts that are happening. If you look at sub-Saharan Africa, even actually like parts of Northern Europe as well now, actually, how do we go one step further? After conserving it, how do we make it available to others that actually need it?
That's amazing. So that's something that you're actively developing at the moment. Oh my goodness, I love this, Prisca. I absolutely love what you are doing. I'd want to go back a little bit, and I know we don't have much time, but how did you start Baresop? I mean, obviously you were inspired by emotionally by what you wanted to achieve, but and you've had experience with startups before. Was it a living room startup? Did you get funding? What was how did you go about it?
You mean with Baresop?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Actually, very good question. The first year, I bootstrapped. Literally, like, I went through my savings. I'm not going to tell you how much, because you're going to fall off your chair. But to obviously develop the product, to actually start to bring it all up, at the beginning, I got a 10K grant from Monash University, which was, I would say, a fraction of what I needed, but it did, obviously, everything helps. And we also, at some point, 2 years on, we got Amazon. It was a 200K grant, but it covered marketing. But we got 20K grant from Amazon as an innovative product that's solving big problems. But I would say 80% very much bootstrapping, no investment. And to be fair, at that time, I wasn't seeking investment because I was a team of one trying to make sure, is this even a thing? And the amount of time I'd need to actually go through fundraising, I did not have that time. I'm like, I need every time, every minute to focus on doing this, right? And if I divert my attention, what's going to happen? So that happened until I got onto StartMate. I pinched myself because I think I'm the only third product startup they've ever funded, other than
what was the name of the company?
StartMate.
StartMate. Okay.
So StartMate invested in a safe note for 7%. But what I'm trying to say, like for us, to me, it was not just the money, because StartMate is a whole community. They invested in Great Rap, which is doing very well, and they also Hips Normal was their first consumer product investment. Otherwise, they only invest in technology. They're part of Blackbird VC, which I think one of the best really in Australia, to be honest. Yeah, that's pretty much the funding, but that came, I would say, 2021. Late 2021. But it was, I would say, beginning was very, very much bootstrapping and a bit of grants, and then StartMate invested, and then we kind of just did around late last year, just December, from angels.
Fantastic. And during the beginnings of your journey, were there any moments where you were like, oh my God, this is too hard?
100%. I can tell you one time when I was with Monash, Alan Jones, which is, I think he's very well known in the startup space in Australia. So Alan Jones was my mentor, and at one point we were having a catch up, and I literally just broke down. I was just crying, and Alan was so good. He was like, oh, it's okay. Like, he was really, and I consider myself someone who, like, I don't break down. And if I do, it would be like in my own private space. I'm very in control of my emotions, not a great thing, but just as who I am. And that's how hard it was. I broke down because there was this issue with this thing, and this product wasn't working, and we are supposed to launch like in 2 weeks. And I'm like, what am I going to do? That means I have to dig more into my savings. Is this going to work? Am I just kidding myself? And many times.
I can imagine. I know what I've been through with just a small consultancy. And when you talk about, going through all of your savings, same, but obviously very different when you're launching a product into the market with manufacturing requirements and things like that. Tell me, Prisca, what does your daughter Hannah think of what you've created with Baresop?
Yeah, she actually didn't give me much feedback for a while, but recently, when she gets a lens to what I'm doing, she just goes, and I get it from, I think, like, for example, yesterday I was going to the all-week Monash to do speak to the new Monash incoming students, and some of our friends were going to be there. And it's like, oh, Mom, I'm going to share with everyone. I'm going to tell them you're going to be there. When is your talk? And so she was really, I think that's when I see that she's super proud. Or the other day I was going to a Singapore Australian export program that they needed my participation on. How do they develop a grant for Singapore Australian zero waste sort of economy to collaborate. So it's a government thing. And I thought I was going, I was like, what? And so I feel like she's finally, first like, oh, Mommy's doing her thing. I know she's doing it. But recently I can see she's very much more engaged. Yeah.
That's amazing. And our listeners obviously can't see, but Prisca, as she's sharing this with me, has such a wide beaming smile as she's talking about it. It's just beautiful. Beautiful to see. So I'll share a short story because I think it's relevant with what we're talking about. But my background is marketing, and I used to own an agency we worked for big brands, and you know, I had that for like nearly 20 years, and we had highs and we had lows. It was a roller coaster, right? And our daughter saw that career and, you know, what it looked like. And I think she was in year 10 or year 11. And I was actually working on this new consultancy and what it looked like. And I hadn't spoken about it, but I was visualizing it as the website homepage to get it clear in my mind. And she came to me and she said, "Oh, Mum, I hope you don't mind." We were talking careers. And she said, "But I'm not going to follow your footsteps into marketing. No offense, but it looks like a lot of hard work and it doesn't inspire me." And I said, "No offense taken, Sienna, but what do you think of this?" And I turned my laptop to face her because I'd just finished. And she looked at the proposition, and it was all around, you know, business as a force for good, brands driving profit through purpose. And it talked about that. And she went, that I would absolutely do and commit my career to. And today she is 24 years old. She worked with me for a while, and now she has her own videography business and video editing, serving business for good and social enterprises, getting their message out. So she has landed up in marketing, right? But using it as a force for good.
That's it. 100%. Yeah, it's wow, incredible.
Yeah, and that, I just think, you know, our children deserve us, all of us, to see what we can each do. And as you said right at the beginning of this interview, Prisca, it doesn't have to be big, you know, but what is something small that we can each do to make a better world? So we have to wrap up. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you, and I'd like to leave you with the last word for people who are listening to this podcast who are thinking, I want to do something. You know, perhaps they've got an idea, but they're scared about moving forward because maybe assumptions. Surely if it was a really good idea, someone would have done it before. Or, you know, people are just saying, don't, you know, you're never going to get it up. What's your advice to them based on your experience?
Really simply, and I believe this to the core of my heart, we all have the power to create change. We all have. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter your makeup. It literally, everything is irrelevant. And I mean every single thing. 100%. We all have the power to create change or to follow your path. It's not going to be easy, but you have the power to do it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for making time to talk to me on the podcast. I'm going to go and order my Baresop.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and giving me a platform to share why we exist and our story. And I'd love to reconnect. So we can share more, because I really love your storytelling and how you're actually your purpose being part of the core of what you do. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the For Love and Money podcast. If you'd like to take a deeper dive into the purpose movement, visit us at thecauseeffect.com.au. And remember, doing good is good for business. So if you're not doing good, then what are you doing?